This Canon EF 28-105 f3.5 to 4.5 USM full frame lens literally costs less than my Canon EF to RF adapter, and I love it. All my life I've dreamt of making videos that feel like those classic movies full of character. And I really mean all my life, even before I started doing photography and videography professionally. I think I've created that Adam Sandler's grown-ups kind of look, that classic yet detailed footage, saturated colors, deep greens like there are in the surroundings right now. And moving to Austria, by the way, has helped with that part, with the deep greens. So I got the environment down, but the recording part hasn't been there. I haven't really been happy with that. It's too sharp, too detailed. And I didn't know that the solution had been with me all along. This cheap but precious and tiny little lens would give me the secret ingredient that I've been craving for so long. The EF 28-105 f3.5 to 4.5 USM was released in 1992, costing 52,000 Japanese yen, which back in the day was equal to 325 euros. Nowadays, with inflation, it would be a bit more than double, so about 660 euros. In 1999, Canon released the Mark II version, but I have the Mark I here. You can find these lenses used, the Mark I for under 100 euros and the Mark II for between 100 and 200 euros. This lens has 15 elements in 12 groups. The diaphragm has 5 blades here and 7 blades on the Mark II, and they both weigh just 375 grams. The best thing about this lens, in my opinion, is the huge focal range that it covers at a relatively wide aperture. You can shoot at the widest aperture of 3.5 from 28 to 38 millimeters. Then it goes to f4 from 40 to 68 millimeters, and the rest from 70 to 105 is at 4.5. I honestly don't mind if I put it at f4.5 all the time, then I don't lose any light if I'm zooming in mid-shooting. But it's awesome to know that it can go a bit wider if I need some more background separation or better low light performance on those wider apertures. I know it's silly to compare it to today's RF lenses, but I will do it anyways in a surface level. One of the RF lenses that cover a similar focal range is the 24-105 f4L. I've never used that lens before, but that costs 10 times more money than this costs, if you get it used. And if you buy it brand new, it costs even more. The other option is the RF 24-105 f4 to 7.1, and that costs a little less, and I've used that for a bit over a year in the beginning when I got my first mirrorless camera, and even that costs from 3 to 5 times more than this, while letting in 1 1/3 stops of light less at the tele end and 1/3 stops less at the wide end. I remember that it was a torture to shoot with that lens at the 7.1 aperture. And to top it all off, that would cost 3 to 4 times more than this. Of course, with both RF lenses you get 24mm on the wide end, as well as faster autofocus and generally sharper images, because they are 30 years apart. But on the other hand, you get more character with this one. And for me, especially at this point, character matters much more than that perfectly sharp edge-to-edge image. And keep in mind though that I have both the RF 24 to 70mm f2.8 lens, which is filming right now, and the 70 to 200mm f2.8 in case I need flawless image quality. But again, the value for money that you get with this lens is just unbeatable. And something else that you get with this lens, having an EF instead of an RF mount, is way more versatility. I literally use this on my film camera from the 90s to shoot on film, as well as on my mirrorless cameras, the R6 Mark II and the R7. In a crop camera like the R7, I could even use a focal reducer and get almost the full-frame equivalent lens on a cropped sensor, which I can't do with neither of the RF lenses. I don't have a focal reducer, so I can't really show you how the image would look like on a cropped sensor with a focal reducer. However, I can show you how it looks like on the R7 without the focal reducer. The best part about using this lens on an APS-C camera like the R7 is that you get rid of any vignetting or distortions that happen generally on the corners of these older lenses. So you're really only using the best part of the lens, which is the center. On a crop sensor though, it becomes a 45 to 168mm lens, so you lose a little bit on the wide end, but also at the same time you gain a lot on the tele end. When it comes to photography, I've used it to shoot on film like I've already said, but also to take some pictures with the R6 Mark II, so take a look at them first. So generally I think the photos are really good, however I did notice quite a lot of vignetting on the R6 Mark II. That's not a big issue when filming video because the 16:9 aspect ratio cuts out the corners, but in photography you are using the entire sensor, and that's why the vignetting is only an issue here. I also checked Lightroom and it has no profile corrections for distortions and vignetting for this lens. But I guess you can crop in a little bit or even try to remove it manually in Lightroom. The corners are also a bit soft on this lens, and if you look at the sun reflections on this photo, for example, you will see that there is a lot of loss of detail here. I also noticed that when filming video that when shooting against the sun, the image lost a lot of contrast. But then of course you wouldn't expect this lens to maintain perfect corner-to-corner sharpness or contrast when shooting against the sun, would you? I definitely wouldn't, and I'm actually glad that it has those imperfections because those are exactly what give this lens the character, what gives the footage the character that I was talking about at the beginning of the video. When it comes to autofocus performance, I did try it on different scenarios. As you can see from the footage with the dog, it managed to track it very well. Sometimes, however, I've noticed that it struggles to focus on scenarios where my 24-70, for example, wouldn't have any issues with it. But I think the performance is still decent. And because it uses USM motors, it's also pretty quiet. Listen to this. So to conclude, as I mentioned, this lens is not perfect at all. The sharpness at the corners is pretty bad. When shooting against the sun, it loses a lot of contrast. When you try to zoom in video, it doesn't go very smoothly. It's quite jerky actually. And I've also noticed that during the zoom itself, the lighting of the lens changes. It obviously has a variable aperture, and the autofocus works and is acceptable, I would say, but it's still not on par with my RF lenses. But for the price and the character that you get with it, I think it's a no-brainer really. And like I said in the beginning, I absolutely love this little lens. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.